Okay, thanks, Jen. So we are here to talk about scallops and learn about the scallop restoration project that you're all going to take part in, but we really thought that it was important for us to take a step back and think about the overall context of what makes scallop populations sustainable long-term in an area, and that is, of course, suitable habitat. And that habitat largely consists of seagrass meadows. And so I'm just going to talk to you really briefly about seagrass meadows and why they're important for scallops, and maybe what we can do to help protect the seagrass resources that we have. So as Jen said, my name is Savanna. I'm with Florida Sea Grant and the University of Florida, and I am based in Cedar Key, right in the middle of the Big Bend, where we are blessed with healthy scallop populations and vast seagrass meadows. And this picture that hopefully will be coming up in a second. Yeah, so that is a picture that I actually took in one of my very first summers in Florida, showing a really nice dense seagrass meadow with some scallops peeking out there from underneath the seagrass. So seagrasses really depend on good water quality, and so do scallops, because scallops don't like to be in areas that have high turbidity, lots of particles in the water, because that clogs their biological systems. And for seagrasses, a lot of particles in the water actually creates shaded environments and reduces water quality, reduces light available for them, and that's a major threat to them, as we'll talk about. But so when I say seagrass, what am I talking about? So I am talking about fully submerged grasses that are salt tolerant, and they are actually flowering plants. So these are not the marsh grasses, which are the grasses that stick out above the water in the coastal zone. These are actually the grasses that are living fully submerged in our estuarine and nearshore zones. And that picture, this little pink flower that you can see better on the TV screen, is actually a picture of what a seagrass flower looks like. They're actually more closely related to lilies than they are to our lawn grasses, and that's one reason why they're pretty vulnerable to some of the threats we'll talk about in a second. They have fully developed roots and rhizomes, so that differentiates them from a lot of the macroalgae that sort of float around and drift around in the water column. The root system that they have really anchors them in place and is one of the reasons why they create such valuable habitat and have so many important functions. And of course, we already talked about they require good water quality, and by that we mean they require plenty of light, so clear waters where light can penetrate the bottom and support their photosynthesis. Okay, so seagrasses have many ecological functions, and I'm starting out with this photo because I want you to see a close-up of what it looks like when the baby scallops settle out of the water column and they actually attach to the seagrass blades. So that's one reason why seagrasses are really important to the long-term survival of scallop populations, because that's essential to their early life stages. So of course, seagrasses provide habitat to many different species, not just scallops, and they're really important for biodiversity in areas. And if you're an angler, you're very familiar with the fact that seagrasses support a lot of our important fish species, and it's actually about 75 to 80% of commercially important species spend at least part of their life cycle in seagrasses. So that's a really important thing. They do lots of other cool things. So seagrasses actually trap particles from the water column and stabilize sediments. Having all of those leaves waving around in the water actually serves to slow down the water enough to settle out particles, which they then can trap and keep from being resuspended. So they actually improve the water quality for the scallops and other organisms that live in that area. And of course, the root systems trap those sediments and stabilize them. They can trap and sequester a lot of carbon through their photosynthesis. Per acre, they're actually pretty close to rainforests in their ability to do this. And of course, it's a matter of opinion, but most people find them quite beautiful. They add aesthetic value to an area and recreational value. And because they are plants that are photosynthesizing, they're releasing oxygen directly into the water column, and so they are increasing the capacity for that water to support fish and other things that are consuming that oxygen. So seagrasses, all in all, are really, really important. But unfortunately, they do face many threats. Worldwide and in Florida, the #1 leading threat to seagrass is degraded water quality through siltation or increases in nutrient levels in our estuarine areas. And so the top picture there is just a picture of a harmful algal bloom. There are several other threats that seagrasses face that I won't spend too much time on, but there is another one that I've highlighted here in the other picture, and that's physical damage through propeller and anchor scarring. And that is an easily preventable stressor to seagrass that each and every one of us, when we're out boating, can take personal responsibility to prevent. So because of lack of time, I'm not going to go too much into this information, but I do have some in your bags. You should have seen a card that looks like this, and also a fact sheet about seagrass safe boating, and there's also a sticker in there. And on the back of this card, if you fill out the pledge or go to the website and fill out the pledge, you'll be entered to win a free power pole. So we're doing this to try to increase awareness about seagrass safe boating. Okay, so these are just some pictures that I took or that I borrowed from people that have taken pictures in my neck of the woods. These are mostly from Steenhatchee and Crystal River, which, as you know, are very popular recreational scalloping areas. And all of that boating pressure places a lot of pressure on the seagrass meadows themselves. So other than the seagrass safe boating, how can you help in protecting our seagrass resources? So the first one is participate in monitoring and restoration efforts. You're already here participating in the scallop restoration, which is great, but FWC and UF often have other seagrass related volunteering opportunities, and so that's one really great way that you can contribute. I already covered the seagrass safe boating, and also doing your part to protect water quality. It follows logically that if water quality declines are the leading threat, then we should all do our part to do things like reduce lawn fertilizer use and collect grass clippings and prevent those things from entering our water bodies. And then another really important one is to use your voice and your power as a local citizen to voice your support for seagrass restoration and protection efforts, whatever those may be. So you're a part of this project. It's generating a lot of interest in the community, which is really excellent. And this is a platform for you to talk to seagrass about your friends, relatives, maybe even your county representatives or whoever it is you think needs to hear about how important seagrass is. So that's all I had for you. I'll be here at the end if anyone wants to ask me questions about seagrass. It is one of my passions, and we also have a lot of information on our website and social media, Florida Sea Grant and the Nature Coast Biological Station, about seagrass. So with that, I'll hand it back over to Jen.